Silence. That's all that Snake Eyes' enemies hear. Snake Eyes is, of course, from the show GiJoe, the 1980s cartoon, comic book, toy juggernaut. Snake Eyes had a counterpart on the show called Storm Shadow, who was an evil ninja. Though Snake Eyes does look fearsome, he is still a valiant, heroic soldier who would risk his life for his fellow soldiers without a word. Because Snake Eyes is mute. In the act of saving another soldier's life, his own neck was damaged so that he could no longer speak. His skills were so great that he was allowed to stay in the special forces that would become G.I. Joe. He's silent, deadly, and ruthlessly efficient, but he's one of the good guys. So most of what we're about to talk about is about assembly. I purchased these items in different sections. The pants, of course, were actually purchased at a local army surplus place. They're just basic cargo pants. The shirt is, of course, from Galls.com. It's a military sweater. I did reuse the Deathstroke sword sheath, so that came in extra handy. I did also reuse a holster that was a part of a Max Payne costume from some years ago. Reused my Deathstroke grenade. I got their pouch from a yard sale for $1. The knee pads, of course, were repurposed from previous costumes. I bought them for probably $1 each. The sword's probably $2 again at a yard sale. The spandex suit is actually what cost the most, $35 at good old Spirit store. Lastly, I did reuse my boots from the Batman and Deathstroke costumes. I had this crazy idea. I was going to go ahead and plan out the Snake Eyes visor, the really most complicated part, by taking some measurements on myself. Then I was going to go ahead and take that and put that into Adobe Illustrator and create a pattern for me to be able to cut out the shapes in the EVA foam. There's my pattern. So I went to the business of cutting it out, shaping it, trimming it, in fact, with an X-Acto knife. Interesting problem I came across. The one that I printed originally was done on 11 by 17 sheets. I made it what I thought was the correct shape. It wasn't. It was much too big. I even cut out the middle parts and it still was too big. I had to go back to the drawing board. A scary day indeed. But what you do, you get back on that horse. Here's the pattern that I had. Here's a size comparison. I basically cut the size in half. Printed out on 8.5 by 11. Cut it out in the same manner as before. Pinned it down, of course, to the EVA foam. Pulled out the necessary pen. Traced it slowly, carefully. And then went to the hard business of cutting it out, which was a little slow and more than a little nerve-wracking. There isn't very much room for error when you're working on pieces this fine. So I gouged out the pieces to give it that look, but I came across an interesting fact about EVA foam. Boy, does it burn good. It turns out the old soldering iron can make shapes in the EVA foam pretty readily. I don't necessarily have a steady enough hand to do like fine detail work, but it did help me to gouge in all the shapes that I needed and reinforce them. So I actually had to cut my creation in half because Snake Eyes' actual visor does have that sort of crimped middle. Now I did exaggerate a little bit the middle part there, mostly for my sake because I needed something to be structurally strong. It could have been a pretty terrible weak point if I didn't go so heavy on it. Coated the outside to get rid of the obvious connection. Put in the top and bottom pieces to cover the top and make it fit snug against my forehead and nose. Put on the first coat of paint. Second, third coat of paint. I did it actually with a blue undercoating, then it was silver. The silver, I gotta tell you, took a long time to dry. Added a strap to my machine gun so I don't have to actually carry it while walking around. Took out some red construction felt, took out some red construction foam, made Snake Eyes' clan symbol. Of course, that's a grenade I got to reuse. Then I, of course, added to those details the low lights, as you might want to call them, in the darker areas with adding a little bit of black paint. Just the usual acrylic stuff. Then I did a bit of a wash over it to give it sort of an aged and weathered look. A lot of steps, not nearly as bad as previous costumes. I'm very pleased with the outcome. It was a very easy costume to wear, it was very breathable. Moving around it actually cooled me down. So you, the viewer, could I trouble you to put in a few comments for what costumes you might want to see me do next year? I'm taking suggestions and I hope to have it ready and chosen by January 1st and have plans and things ready to go and announcements ready shortly thereafter. Feel free to drop as many comments as you like. Thanks for watching.